Hello, hello. Do without wilt shall be the whole of the law. I'm Lexi Eve, and welcome back to another grade signs and magical gestures video. So, happy equinox, everyone. Yesterday, I posted the video, which is all about my Stele 666 replica giveaway. That video is still live, and in 48 hours, I'm going to announce the winner in a separate video. So if you're interested, if you're in the 50 states, or if you're international, I will ship it to you if you cover the shipping, but within the 50 states, I'll be covering the shipping. So if you're interested in perhaps winning a free stele that I make by hand, there's a link in the description to that video. You go to that video and comment and follow the instructions from that video, and you may be picked. And everybody, if you don't win this time, I do intend to give away more stuff in the future. I feel like it was a good way to, stimulate the community, help the channel grow, and it's me giving back, which is what this channel is all about to begin with. So, without further ado, today I'm going to be analyzing the grade sign of 2nd degree equals 9 square, the sign of Shu, corresponding with the sphere Yesod, and the grade of Zelator in AA. To begin, this grade sign is described thus. Quote, air, the god Shu supporting the sky. AA grade sign, 2nd degree equals 9 square. Description, arms raised, elbows bent 90 degrees, forearms vertical, with wrists bent as though holding up the sky, end quote. And you'll see that picture as the thumbnail and the background video. As said, this sign corresponds with the grade of Zelator in Yesod. Yesod is on the middle pillar and corresponds with air. Note that Yesod is directly above Malkuth. Malkuth is often associated with the microcosm, and the Ruach, the 6 spheres above it, the macrocosm. Yesod is almost the link between micro and macrocosms. Shu, as a god of the wind, separates the earth and the sky. So I think it's interesting placing this sign, representing the Zelator in Yesod, makes one's feet almost on Malkuth and their arms supporting the pillars of mercy and severity, and his head being connected with Tifereth and the middle pillar above. It's kind of like this grade sign is the separation between heavens and the earth, which also reminds me of Eve from the Garden of Eden in the Golden Dawn papers, the Garden of Eden before the fall from the Golden Dawn. In that image, she's literally is standing on Malkuth, supporting the pillars. So it's a very interesting placement of the sign. In fact, that's one of the more feminine aspects of this sign, while almost everything else about it is rather masculine. Shu is a god, air is a masculine element, the shape of Shu, signifying the letter Shin, fire, also masculine, which I'll mention more later. Those are all masculine. Yet Yesod is a pretty much feminine Sephiroth corresponding with Luna. So I find that rather interesting. It's really like that one image of Eve from the Golden Dawn is one of the only feminine traits of this sign that connects femininity to it. Let's summarize a few key points about Shu's mythology. Ra was on the sun throne at the time. He was told a prophecy about Nut, the goddess of the night sky, and Geb, the earth god, that they were in love, and if they should have offspring, their child would ascend to the throne and take Ra's place. And not having any of that, Ra commands Shu to separate Geb from Nuit, so that they could never come into sexual contact for all 360 days of the calendar year, and therefore have children, therefore he would be dethroned. Obeying his lord, Shu complies. He lifts Nuit and stands upon Geb, so that only Nuit's feet and fingertips can touch Geb. Now Nuit becomes distraught and starts looking for help. She goes to Tahuti and basically begs him to help her. Tahuti sympathizes with her and has an idea. He goes to Khonshu and gambles with Khonshu, the god of the moon, whose light was revered for being almost as powerful as Ra. Every time Tahuti wins, Khonshu must give some light to Nuit. Now Tahuti wins so much that Nuit ends up having enough light to make 5 extra calendar days. And it is then during these 5 days that Nuit is able to come into contact with Geb, as Ra said she cannot come into him for 360 days of the calendar year. Well, now there's 5 extra days, and it allowed Nuit to come into contact with Geb. They had many children together, and one of these was Osiris, who would eventually grow and supplant Ra on the Sun Throne. Till this day, Shu separates Geb from Nui. So there's a lot of really cool symbolism here, and even an explanation in the myth for how the ancients reconciled the 360-day calendar with the 365 days that they realized there actually are in the time it takes for the Earth to go around the Sun. It's similar in this way to the Greeks adding the letter E to Mithras, so instead of M-I-T, it became M-I-E-T, so that the numerical value of the name Mithras became 365. It would have been taught that, though it is sad that Nuit and Geb could never come into contact, it's actually necessary in order for the heavens to not come crashing down upon the earth, given the land and sky a space in between for man, animals, and vegetation to thrive. Now, of course, with physics today, this myth is definitely outdated, but for the ancient, it was a step forward in the understanding of the universe back in their time. Definitely an advancement of their understanding and their consciousness. It was basically their science. Now, besides wind and air, Shu also is known as the god of peace, lions, and some also say clouds and thunder. Now, on to analyzing using this sign, the great sign of Shu in Yesod, 2nd degree equals 9 square of AA. You're essentially making a gesture as though you are Shu and you're holding the sky up above you. When I give this sign, I begin by standing with my arms at my sides relaxed. Then I lift up my arms to the 90-degree angles of my shoulders, elbows, and wrists. And I visualize myself lifting Nuit's midsection so that her waist is completely arched above me, and her feet are on the ground to my right, and her fingertips just grazing the ground on my left. I like to imagine that I've become so intensely strong that I can actually hold up all of the air, space, stars, and planets in the universe above me. There is then an energy vitalizing aspect to this sign. Being associated with Yesod, this sign is close to the Nefesh, the animal soul. And so I would like to point towards a few quotes concerning strength, which is a base matter of the body, but also symbolic of one's strength of character as well. Quotes, "The law of the strong, this is our law and the joy of the world." L chapter 2, verse 21. Also L chapter 2, verse 22, quote, "Be strong, O man, in lust, enjoy all things of sense and rapture. Fear not that any God shall deny thee for this," end quote. And then also L chapter 3, verse 70, quote, "Wisdom says, be strong, then canst thou bear more joy. Be not animal, refine thy rapture," end quote. Lastly, from Liber LXB, 65, chapter 1, verse 56, quote, "And Adonai said, the strong brown reaper swept his swathe and rejoiced. The wise man counted his muscles and pondered and understood not and was sad. Reap thou and rejoice," end quote. Now, none of this is actually referring to physical strength, but strength of will, not to be confused with willpower, but the ability to do that which you need to, despite fear, despite external conditions. Something akin to courage and integrity. Now, Shu is a wind god, and associated with the space between the ground of the earth and the sky above. Yesod is also an air sphere. But by looking at the shape of the upper body of one giving this sign, your arms, your hands, and your head, with your shoulders the way that your arms are, you sort of resemble the shape of the letter Shin. Shin corresponds with fire, but Shin on the path 32 negative bis corresponds with spirit. Air is also symbolically associated with spirit. Air, wind, it's translucent, invisible. It has strength, it's strong, it's powerful, potentially violent, and it's able to be felt. Air and fire are both masculine elements. On the air pentagram, air and fire are connected by the line that one draws when casting an active spirit pentagram. So I think that there's an interesting connection between this being an air sign, and yet you're resembling Shin, which is fire, but also spirit. So I think there's an interesting interplay between air and fire going on here. There's a very masculine connection. It all comes to spirit at the end of the day, but yeah, it's something to really consider. Every grade sign is giving us insight into our spirit or soul. So what is truly being communicated here? I have the feeling that it has to do with the aspect of spirit which connects our physical body to that which is above. Our body is earthy. Our spirit is divine. Also, wind or air is always in motion when felt. Here, this communicates the idea that spirit is the consciousness which allows us to control the movement of our body, to take action, summed up in the fifth power of the Sphinx, to go. Having the fiery shape of Shin in a grade sign associated with air reminds me of the idea of the fire Kadash, which Crowley was fond of writing about in the holy books, especially Liber Ararita. The fire Kadash, to me, is very much like the fire of Olympus, which Prometheus gave to primitive man, raising him up from animal to intelligent being. In the glyph of the hexagram with Ararita written around it, the yod in the center is very much like the fire Kadash. It is the spark of the limitlessness manifest in the center of one's being. This connects the sun, which is fiery, to its placement on the middle pillar, which is all air on that pillar. The unity of severity and mercy, the two poles of the spirit, symbolic of the Tao Te, the yin-yang, the four elements of male and female natures, fire and water put together, air. The letter Shin has 3 yods. Each have a numerical value of 10, so 3 tens equals 30. The value of Lamed, Lamed corresponds with Libra. Libra is an air sign and also represents the scales which balance male and female in harmony. Another thing to consider, so you're giving this grade sign which has the shape of 3 yods, and so it equates to Libra, which is the balance of the scales. So there's an aspect to the way that your hands are to either side, balancing these 2 pillars. So it's just something to consider. There's a lot being communicated here very subtly, and when I give this sign, I like to imagine that I'm becoming immensely strong, so much that I could support the actual heavens above me. I'm touching New Eve. I'm standing upon the earth. I'm separating these 2 deities so that life can exist. Think about that. You're giving a sign that means you're allowing life to exist by the space between macro and microcosms, right? Something very important going on there. And that's allowing you to be manifest. So you're making a symbolic action that represents life being allowed to exist. So that's super powerful. With that, I think I've given enough symbolism and ideas on what to do when giving this grade sign, how to do it, a lot of the elements that are involved here, what you can tap into, what's not to be tapped into. So I'm going to end this one here. Love is the law, love under will. Stay tuned. In less than 48 hours, I'm going to be giving away the stele to somebody. So comment on that previous video and stay tuned for the next video. Cheers.